Now, the questions themselves, there is a compulsory section, section A, and an optional section, section B. Section A will contain 2 questions, and they will add up to 60 marks. But that's all I can tell you, because the number of marks for question 1 and question 2 varies from exam to exam. Question 1 will always be the longest question on the paper. It will have the most marks. Or potentially question 1 and question 2 could both be 30. But in the past it's been round about 35 for question 1, 25 for question 2. Sometimes they've been closer. We have had 30-30. But normally it's been about 35-25. Now, the questions often will have various syllabus areas on them. So part A is on one syllabus area, part B is on a completely different area, part C is on a third area, and so on. You will find that in a lot of the exam questions, the various different parts of the question, A, B, C, D, whatever, actually have very little to do with each other. Now, that is a fairly major advantage in P5, because it does mean that in some questions you can do them pretty much in whatever order you like. Now, I know in a lot of exams, P3 for example, you are better off doing A, then B, then C, do it in the right order. In P5, often it really doesn't make a lot of difference what order you do it in. The other thing to bear in mind, as it says there, is that the topics, the syllabus areas, not only can you often do them in any order, but often they are a mixture of different things that you're being tested on. So, for example, a single question could contain within it, do some calculations. The same question could then have marks for discussing what the calculations mean. The same question may then have some other marks, something theoretical. Discuss how this theory would help, or discuss how this theory could be used in this particular situation. So often the P5 exam is made up of completely separate kind of skills. Now that means, unfortunately, that you need to be good at all of those. You can't just be good at calculating figures, you also have to be good at interpreting them, and you have to learn the theories as well, I'm afraid. A couple of other points just to bear in mind. Question 1 has always, on the first 6 exams, has always been to do with how is the organisation doing. Normally you have been given some figures or you need to calculate them, and the whole idea is to interpret what those figures mean. Now, what the examiner has done in lots of the exams is, first of all, there are the numbers. What do they mean? Secondly, what do you think about the way we are going about this? Have we collected the right figures? How are we comparing them with the right things? So not only, here's the figures, evaluate the company, but do you agree with the method that we are using to evaluate the company? So very, very practical and requiring some thinking on your part. Finally, again, very, very important, there are more marks available for discussion, for writing, than there are for numbers. If you simply do all the calculations and that's all you do in class and that's all you do in revision, you won't pass the exam. At some point you need to interpret and you need to think and give suggestions. If you can't do that, you won't pass P5, I'm afraid. Final thing, as far as the introduction is concerned to this paper, how do you pass? Well, first of all, yes, you do need to know various bits of theory, but you also need to understand it. It's not good enough simply to copy out what you've seen in a textbook. The examiner will often say, how could this be used here? How could this theory help here? Secondly, calculate the figures correctly, interpret them in the context of the question. Now that last bit, in the context of the question, is incredibly important in P5. In one industry, having a current ratio of 1.1 might be terrible and would indicate the company's doing really badly. In a different industry, having a current ratio of 1.1 might be acceptable. In fact, it might even be quite good. So you can't just say this is always bad, this is always good, because it depends what's going on. Imagine, for example, you have a company, you have an organisation where profit levels are not particularly good, where profit margins are perhaps not very good. Does that mean the company is doing badly? Well, it depends. Maybe it has just launched a major new product, and because of that, it expects margins to be low this year, but next year we would expect them to be higher. Now, again, a lot of students in the exam will simply say the profit margins are low, this company is terrible. They won't have thought about the context of the question. So it's very important that you think about the numbers and then you think, why did the examiner give me those numbers in this particular situation? Third, be able to adapt techniques. Now, one of the things that you may remember from doing earlier papers is there are certain areas where you can just learn what to do and it's always basically the same. Any of you that remember from F5 doing things like variances, operating statements, once you've learned how to do a materials usage variance, it is always the same. There might be a couple of little things that change, but pretty much the technique is always going to be the same. In P5, there might be things which are similar to past exam questions or past things that we've practiced, but they will be slightly different, and it's being able to adapt to what's slightly different that is the trick, or one of the tricks to passing. If you simply say, this is how I did it before, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing again, often that won't work. There'll be different bits in there in each different exam question. So you need to be able to change things if you need to. And finally, you need to practice doing exam questions under exam conditions. That includes the writing as much as the numbers. Particularly with P5, it is quite a time-pressured exam, and the only way to get ready for that is to have practiced. So, that's an introduction to P5, and hopefully you will find that following these little rules will improve your marks immensely. I wish you the best of luck.